Guys, I'm Soumya, and I'm going to run you guys through the HTML, CSS, and JS workshop for Hoth. All right. Before we get started, make sure you have VS Code and Chrome installed. You guys probably already have Chrome, but VS Code, just go ahead and click on the links, and it'll be pretty quick to download. And feel free to follow along. Click here to get the README. So that's just going to be a different format of the slides. Same thing, basically. Or just follow along with the slides. All right. What does HTML, CSS, and JS, what do they even stand for? All right. So HTML is hypertext markup language, CSS is cascading style sheets, and JS is JavaScript. You don't really need to know what they stand for. No one's going to really ask you. It's really not important. We're just going to refer to them as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. All right. Together, we get a website, kind of. So HTML, CSS, and JS, they're the front end. So that's going to be everything that you interact with. The back end, that's a whole different story, which we're not going to get into right now. But yes, front end is the user interface. So anything that you'll see, buttons, text, images, anything that you will interact with. Back end is like the logic behind business logic, anything that really does not matter to you. You just want it to work. All right. So now that we're focusing on front end for this workshop, let's get into the differences between HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So a good analogy is HTML is like the skeleton of like a body. So that's going to have your basic structure, your bones, just where your content is going to lay out, like sectioning it off. CSS, that's going to stylize everything. So that's like the skin. You're adding clothes or facial hair, whatever you need. That's making it more whole. In JavaScript, that's like the brain. That's when you actually get a website that's dynamic and interactive. So yeah, HTML, basic skeleton, links web pages, defines text, CSS, there you go, style, color, change the colors, fonts, all that good stuff. And then JavaScript, make it dynamic. So it's kind of in order of complexity, I would say too. Let's begin with HTML. All right. Tags are the most essential part of HTML. Tags organize your text so it is expressly clear what part of the text is what. All right, that's kind of confusing, but let's get to an analogy. So say you're writing an essay. Hack is the best. That would be the title. Everyone is super fun, cool, and awesome in Hack. That's the first paragraph. And the second paragraph is Hoth is the coolest event on campus, which it is. So then if we want to translate that into HTML, we have to be more clear. So like here, we have the title. We have a title tag. That's the opening tag, and that's the closing tag with the hash with the little slash. So now we're very certain that this is the title. Then we got the first paragraph. Again, it's very clear that this is one paragraph. And then another one. This is also expressly clear that it's a paragraph. And make sure you don't confuse head with H1, which we'll get into later, but just know title goes over here. All right, here's some useful tags to know. Of course, there's button. Feel free to click on these links and get access to a lot of great resources on the internet. Okay, so here's some more tags. H1, this is a header. So think Google Docs, you have header 1, header 2, all that. Paragraph, that's just gonna be regular text. You got image, which is, you put an image, and we'll get into source and alt later. Those are called attributes, but we'll get into that later. And this A tag, that's going to be a link. This is also another attribute, so that's going to be your link to what site you want or whatever you want to link on your page. And then we got the divider tag, which is, again, sections your code or your HTML. All right, attributes, here we are. So class, that's the attribute. You see that we have the tags as usual, paragraph, right? So inside the starting tag, you have an attribute, which kind of like variables or like another name, you could say. And then you have the value of the attribute, and then you have actually the content. And all this together creates an element. So yeah, here's another example. We got the opening tag and the closing tag. This is regular, the content element. And if we add a little attribute here, that's just where it's saying my cat is grumpy. That's an editor note. That's kind of how it works. And yes, so they store extra information about the element, and the class or any attributes are particularly useful, like class, when referring to them in the CSS or JS file. So that'll come here. So here's the basic format for creating an attribute. Usually any IDEs will just like automatically fill it in for you, but there you go. Here's some important attributes, like we said, source. So that's going to be any URL or whatever path to your image or whatever. This one is for links, and all alt is just title, your link or whatever. And yeah, so we're going to get into ID and class specifically, but these are good ones to know. All right. With HTML, there's some magic lines at the beginning that you always put in that pretty much, they're just your starter code, boilerplate code. Very simple. You don't even have to think about it. Just copy and paste it. So go ahead and make sure to copy and paste this because we're going to use this in a second. All right. So we're going to start with our demo, just creating that HTML file. We're not going to do much with it. But yeah, we're going to be using those magic lines. Also, we're going to be following this project example on YouTube. And if you click on this link, there's going to be tons and tons of more in this video. Really great resource as a beginner. All right, so to put into practice, what you guys are going to do is create a new folder called dice roll or whatever you like it. So you just can go to your desktop or whatever you want to do, create a new file, open VS Code, go to file, which should be probably up there. I have a Mac, so it might look different if you have Windows. Open folder, and then there should be a little pop-up there, and it should give you the different folders you have, and just open dice roll. And then you should be in the workspace for dice roll. Here you should see on this left side that we saw here, little image there, icon. If you click that, you can create a new file, and we just want to name it index.html, or you don't have to name it index, but we're going to do that. And now what we can do is copy and paste these lines from before into this HTML file. And then you can go back on to your folder on your laptop, open it up, should be a little Chrome. It's called index.html, but it should open up in Chrome, and then you have a website. Let me show that real quick for you guys. I already have file made and all that. So I already have this file up. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste these magic lines. All right. We're going to do command save or control save. So now it's all saved, or you can also go up here and click save. And now when you go to my file, my folder is on my desktop, so I'm just going to go right here. And yep, index.html, we can open that up. It's going to open right here in your Chrome tab. And there you go. You got to have a website now. It's obviously very much nothing. You just have the title and some basic content, but that's where we're starting with. All right, let's get back to our slides and get more information. All right, let's get into CSS now. So that's going to be prettifying the skeleton and making sure our site actually looks cool. All right, there are 3 ways to style your HTML with CSS. So we have inline, which you can directly in tags and put in your styles. That's going to be used for very small projects, not in our case, or you can use a style tag as well, which also you can see that. But for our purposes and probably for bigger projects, you're just going to be using a .css file. So let's look into that. So yeah, up here we have our external CSS. That's going to be the .css file. All you have to do is paste the link in, which we've seen with the attributes, or you can also use the style tags here. And this is within the tags. You can do style equals kind of like an attribute. That also works, but very limited. But for our purposes, we'll be inside a CSS file and creating our own, just styling it on our own. All right, so yeah, as we said, this is going to link the .css file to HTML. This is whatever you name your CSS file. It could be whatever you want. It's not necessarily always going to be style. Okay, so when we go into our .css file, the way we or if we just use style tags, the way we style the HTML is we specifically talk about the tags. Which tag are we focusing on? So which element? We're doing all the elements in H2. And what do we want to change about it? We want to change the color. And what do we want to change it to? Make it green. So this, you could also think of it as the property to change and how to change that property. Pretty simple, but it can get more complex. So here's some good properties. We got font family, font size, color, background color, all that stuff. You don't have to memorize any of these, of course. Go ahead and Google them anytime you need them, and you should be able to find them. But these are quite common. We're going to definitely be using a lot of these actually today. All right, so let's circle back to HTML and talk specifically about the class and ID attributes, because these are the most useful when referencing in CSS files. All right, so class is when an attribute has multiple elements. So all elements under one class will be modified. So here we have a header or H1 header tag, and it has the class center. And then we have paragraph center and another paragraph who has the class center large. All right, so now in the CSS file, we can do p.center. So that's going to refer to paragraph that has the center class. And we're going to make sure that everything here is going to be red and centered. So that's why I said that there. And then p.large, so any paragraph with the class large is also going to be super large. All right, all right. So again, here we have our header file. Since we never did h1.center, nothing happens here. But say we wanted to do that and make sure that H1 is also centered and red, go ahead and change this to H1. And we can run it. Oops, don't want that. And there you go, now it's all centered. So we just gotta make sure you're referring to the right tag. So that's with class. So IDs, again, they're kind of similar, except with IDs, it's unique attribute for the element. So in the CSS file, when we're talking about whatever ID, it's going to talk about that singular element. So for in this example, we have paragraph 1 is hello world. So when we refer to paragraph 1, it's only going to talk to this and change this to be red and centered, which we can look again over here in the W3 schools try it. Yep, we got pair 1, and say we wanted to actually have another attribute for the second paragraph, let's call it pair 2. Then we can go ahead and do this here, refer to the second ID, and let's make it green. Why not? And there you go, that's great. Kind of like magic. All right. Now we can go back to our slides. Now we can finally go back to our dice roll simulator and kind of get our styling in. And specifically, we're going to use the class and ID attributes to work on our HTML file. All right, so now we have our boilerplate code here, right? This is obviously we're doing a dice roll simulator, so we're just going to title it differently. And we're going to do that up here as well. In title, that's just going to be the page title, even though that's not actually visible. I'm going to put that there too. Okay, so let's get started with creating a dice class and dice ID. A little shorthand for this is you can do hashtag dice, and then, or that'd be for class, it'd be .dice, because we saw that early in the CSS, and it would be hashtag dice for the ID. And then just click enter, and there you go, boom. VS Code did that for us. All right, so now we have the class and ID. So let's create a button, which it's not going to do anything yet, but we'll be able to see it. So we can just do cutesy little button. Oh, it's going to fill it off already for me, but so we can go ahead and do that. Your VS Code probably do that too. Change up the wording if you like. I like to use camel case, which is lowercase for the first word, uppercase for the second, and onwards. And All right, so now if we command save, we can go back here, we can just refresh the page. And boom, we got our roll dice, it doesn't do anything, and we still have our text from before. And just for fun, just to see some extra HTML tags, we're just going to create an unordered list, which is going to be tag UL. And we can just, we're just going to call it, give it an idea of roll history. So when you roll the dice, you're going to want to see the history. Let me show you what it's supposed to look like at the end, if that'll load. Yeah, so we got our history here. So when you roll it, it'll list, just tell you over them. All right. So yeah, we're going to call it roll history. And we're going to just create list elements, which let's do roll one. Gotta make sure we close it. Roll one. And we're going to create a span tag here because later on in our CSL file, if we refer to this die face, we want it to specifically be within this span. We don't want to do the whole list. So we're going to do span tag, and I already have the Unicodes for die faces pulled up, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy it in. You guys can just Google it up or copy the one I have in the README file or the slides. Same difference. But basically all this is going to do is our first die face is going to be this one, which I think is a 6 face die. So we can say that here. There's no red line, so everything should be good. If we go on our demo one, let's refresh the page. There you go. Boom, there's a list. And it's very small, but you have the Unicode character, which we're going to increase in size later by going to our CSS file. I think we're pretty much done with our HTML here. So important, whenever we talk about, we don't need this here. If we want to stylize our page, we're going to create a .css file. I'm going to call it my style.css. Click enter. And before we do anything here, we got to make sure that we actually link it. So we're going to do that right under the title here. We're going to do link, of course, and this is going to be the rel tag. It's going to probably fill it in for you. Equals, oops, you can do style sheet, href, equals, and that's, I called mine style.css, so we're just going to put that in there. Oops. And close up our tag. You got a little sneak peek, but we're going to do that later. We're going to create a little script file as well. And now we can actually, anything that we do in here will be reflected on our site, our dice roll simulator. So what we're going to start with is, if we refer back to our index.html, everything in our content is encompassed in the body tag. So basically, we're just going to say everything in our body tag is going to have certain font or whatever. So we're just going to start by referring to this body tag, body. So that's our basic format, of course. Oh, there we go. It already filled it up for me. So font family, that's just going to be the font. I actually want to do Times New Roman. And this is just going to be a backup font in case Times New Roman is not available. There you go. And yep, you want it to be centered. I'm going to choose a background color of, I already have a hex code up here. So I'm just going to paste mine in. You guys can do whichever code you like, make it whatever color you'd like. And boom. There you go. And you can actually use the color picker here. So all up to you. And I'm going to start with a margin of 0. So later we personalize everything ourselves. All right, so let's hit the command save. Let's go back to our little simulator. Boom. Okay, so now everything is centered, everything's the same font, and it's all blue for our background. Now, if we go back to our index.html, we'll notice what else is there. We got our H1, so let's go with H1. So H1, boom, boom. So what we want there, let's make it pretty large. I'm going to do font size I'm going to do 3 REM. Basically, REM just means that's like the base style or base ratio. I'm just going to do 3 times that. And this just ensures that whatever device you pull this up, whether it's a phone or whatever, the aspect ratio is going to be dynamic. And we're just going to make the margin from top. I'm going to do 2 REM. Oops. See, you get little red lines. 2 REM. All right, so now we can actually get into the more interesting parts, which we're going to go with .dice. It already filled it in kind of for me. .dice, so we're going to refer to our class dice specifically. That's why we did .dice. And I'm going to start with font size 7 REM because we want our want it to be pretty big. We want people to be able to see it. And we are just going to do 5 pixels. Again, this is like whatever you'd like. I'm just choosing this personally for my style. And yeah, we're just going to leave it as that for now. You can command save, go ahead and refresh the page. We'll see. All right. Okay, now we want to actually see the button, so it's going to fill it in for me again, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. We are going to start with the background color, which I'm just going to make it a darker version of what we already have. I already have that. Pull it up for me so you guys can choose whichever color you'd like. Doesn't really matter. Color, I'm going to go with white. Boom. And font size, we're going to do 1.5 REM. Again, this is all like up to you guys. I'm actually going to paste what I have already kind of so I can explain it easier to you guys. Here we go. So I want the padding to be 1 REM and 2 REM. So that's going to just mean that the button is going to be larger so the text is evenly spaced inside. Border radius, that's just going to make it so it's a little curved on the edges. And this one is important. This, if we didn't have this, actually I'll show you without it first. If we roll a thing, okay, we got a super big dice here. I think I made it a little too big. Gotta change that up later. Let's see. Might have to be. Oh, font size. There we go. We don't want it to be that big. Just do that much. Again, it's a lot of trial by error. Yep, see, now we got the margins if you see that. So now it looks cute, but notice it doesn't really look clickable. Like my pointer just stays as the mouse. But I can go ahead and do cursor, yep, pointer, save it there, refresh the page, and boom. Now it looks like you can actually click it. It won't do anything yet, but we're getting our way onto that. All right, so we can do a few more things here with the button. We can go ahead and do a little subclass called button hover. I'm just going to fill it in for me. And basically that's just going to do whenever I go over the or the button, it's going to be a different color. So it's just easier for the user to see what is going on. So save that. Yep, there you go. Now it looks clickable. Not yet, but we're on our way. And now we can just play with our little lists that we have as well. I'm just going to go ahead and copy paste what I already have because it's not very different from what we've already done. Again, we got the padding in the margin, background color, border radius. That just, make the curved box shadow. That's just going to do it's going to make it stand out more. It's just a shadow. And we just say with 0, 0, 0, that just means black. And that's going to be the transparency of 0.5%. And here, this is a little new, display flex. I'll show you without it first. And boom. See, it's a very large or it's quite large, the history. Let's go to, okay, yeah, there you go. And yeah, it's just very close. We want it on the side here, So we're going to fix that by saying display flex so we can, organize that ourselves. And we're going to use it so there's space between and align each element to the center. So let's command save real quick, refresh that up, and there you go. Boom, they moved. And now remember how we did the little span tag? We can talk specifically about that span tag here. Go boom, and we can do font size. I'm going to do 3 rem. Oops, 3, and I'm going to make the margin right. So boop, 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 boop. Now it's a little bigger. See that? Quite nice. Boop, boop, boop. I think we don't want it to be that large. So what I'm going to do is, we forgot our UL tag. I was like, okay, we're missing something. Okay, we skipped right ahead to the list. We want to still talk about their under the list first. So we just right now talked about this first element, but we need to talk about the UL. So I'm going to copy that, pasting, or paste that over. Boom, boom. List style, we're just using our own, like nothing. Padding 0, just a list. Yeah, there we go. Max width. So that's just going to keep it smaller because before it spanned the entire page, we don't want that. And this is just our margining. And now it should look better. Oops, maybe not. I forgot to put in put the list in the unordered list in our tab. So those are like just the little mistakes you can make that are quite annoying with the tags. And now if we run over here, it should, there we go. Now it's perfect. All right, let's go to JavaScript. So again, we're gonna make this dynamic. We're gonna actually make sure our buttons work now. All right, circling back to HTML real quick, because again, we need, just like we linked the style.css file, we need to link our JavaScript file. So we will be doing that. And then they'll be all working together. So let's get into some syntax for JavaScript first to kind of understand what's going on. Go ahead and feel free again to click all these links and get more resources. So, okay, let's start with literals. Literals are just fixed values, 10, a million, a string, so out the school. All of these are going to be literals. They're just values. You also have variables, which I'm sure you're all familiar with in math class. So that's just going to be any values that can change. And then within variables, we have keywords like const and let. So here we have let x equals 5, const, which is like constant. You can have Tonka, last name Johari. Actually, I don't know if that's how you spell Tonka, but let full name equal name plus space last name. So that's going to be the full name Tonka Johari, but let means later if you want to name Adam Smith, that's fine too. All right, so now we got conditionals and loop, which are very similar in probably any other language you know. So if condition 1, else if condition 2, else. And then you also have for loops for let I equals 0. Got I less than some condition, then you can change. It doesn't have to be I equals 0, but change I. So you can do I plus plus. You also have like switch statements and while loops, for each loops, all that stuff. So we're starting with these so far. We also have functions. So we got our function keyword, function. So you're always going to have that. Got your function name, whatever you want it to be, and then your function body and your statements go inside there. You also have objects. So objects are, this is probably the most complex part of JavaScript. You have the containers that are properties, and these properties are accessed or modified via methods. So you have an object, say car. You can do car.model or car.name, car.color. So those are the properties of the car. Because obviously you can just like grab, you know your car is red or whatever. But methods, so that's going to be your car.function, whatever the function is, that actually does something. So you have car.start, that's going to start your car, car.break, do your break. And we're using dot notation for all this. So it's always going to be dot something. So this is document object model. So DOM, you can think of it, you have your document and then you have your HTML. Again, we link that to our head. So that's our CSS and our head, and we have our body. And it all just kind of trickles down. So you're able to access the higher parts or lower parts with dot notation. So a very important one of these DOM methods we can have is document.getElementById. So if you have a button and if you put in whatever ID that button is, you're able to access that, which you can then modify or whatever you'd like to do with it. So in this context, we're getting the ID and we're changing it to new text. So now that button is going to have new text instead of whatever it was before. So yeah, exactly here. Got click me. So we're getting the ID or the button click me. And now we can add an event listener. Event listeners are all they do is just wait and listen until some action is performed or triggered. So in this case, if we click on the button, it's going to do some function. So we have a function and we're just, it takes in a function. This is some function. And we're just, after clicking, we're just going to change that button to be called I have been clicked instead of click me. All right, so now we're going to go into our dice simulator. At this point, this is going to be the demo for the rest of the time. So feel free to go back into the slides, take a break, pause, and then we can get started. One thing that we missed earlier, we want to make sure we have is go into our index file over here and making sure that we're going to have our file link, just like we did with CSL, the style .css file. It's the same thing, basically, except this time we're not actually going to put it up here because we want all this content to load first. So we're just going to go under this little list here and do a script tag, script. It's going to fill it in for me, and boom. Also, a quick thing is just for visual interest. In this divisor, we're just going to have another die face, just like how we had down here. Just going to put that, that's in the tag. So yeah, there we go, in the actual content. There we go, and we can save this. There we go, now we have that. Actually, we don't want that space. And now we can go back just like before, create a new file. We're going to call it script.js. Boom, boom, boom. So now this is not going to actually do anything yet, but now they're all linked. So there's going to be a difference, really. All right. So the first thing we want to do, just like we talked earlier, we want to do DOM, which we're going to start with our button, just like how we had earlier. This is going to be const button equals document.getElement ID. And what do we call our button? We called it a button, yes. Boom. And make sure we have that. Oops. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and add an event listener. So we can do button.add events. Yep, we're just going to call it click because when we clicked. And we're just creating a function like within this event listener. And we're just going to, for now, just to make sure it works, we're going to do console log dot button clicked. Now we can close it up. There you go. Now no red lines, button clicked. Save this. We can make sure we refresh this page. And let's go ahead and open the inspect. Now if we go to console here, click it, boom. Now we can see something actually happened. So that's your indicator that you're doing something right, at least. Okay, now we can actually get into it. So one thing we want to start with is the animation here. We want to roll the dice actually, right? So we're going to go back into our CSS file. I'm going to move that there. And we're going to go to our dice class, which is right here. So we're going to start with doing a little animation. And that animation is going to last however long you want it. I'm going to do 1 second. 1 second. And we're going to do, we want it to be able to be re-rolled again, right? So we want to do animation, fill mode, forwards. Yep. Now we can create a little class called roll animation. There we go. And that's all it's going to have. It's going to be animation names roll. So we have that set. So now for the actual animation part, we need to add keyframes, and we called our animation role. So we're going to do that there. Make sure you close up your brackets. So all this is going to do is say how this image is going to be rotated and at what time or percentage through the frames. So we're just going to start with 0% is, let me copy that over. All right, so 0%, we're going to transform the rotate y 0 degrees and x 0 degrees, obviously because it starts stagnant. And then 100%, we're going to do 720, 720. And so that should be with the CSS we're good with now, but it's not going to really do anything now because we don't have any logic behind it. Yeah, it doesn't do anything because we haven't done any JavaScript. Now we have to go back to the JavaScript and actually code that in. So we are going to go ahead and get the up here. I'm going to do it up here. Let's go ahead and get the dice element. Const dice element. Boom. Okay, so now we're just going to get the die face. And now to actually roll the dice, we need to create a little function. So this is actually where the logic goes. So we're going to do our function keyword, roll dice, boom, boom, and it's going to fill it in for me, but I actually don't want that. But let's start with this part so far. Let me explain that to you guys. So roll result is going to be a random number, right? You have like, you're rolling a dice, 6 face, oop, we don't want that. Whatever. It's going to be 1 through 6, right? So math.random does, it's a random number, and we're going to multiply it by 6, so we can get 6 faces. And math.floor just makes sure that we don't have like 1.5 rolled. And we're adding this 1 because math.random starts at 0, but we want it to start at 1. So there you go for that. Now we can check that we're actually rolling a different number by going ahead and doing console log, or we need to create an actual element. Okay, so we need to do dice element, which we created up here. We want to get the content of it, which is just use, text content. And that's just going to be equal to our roll result. Now you can actually go into your console log, put in roll results. Okay, no red lines. We do have a red line. A little recap, we got our button. We had a little event listener that listens when the button is being clicked. And once it's being clicked, we're going to go to our console log and write button clicked and roll dice. What does roll dice do? It just generates a number 1 through 6 and displays it to over here, this little die face and in the console log. So that's where we're at so far. So now we want to make sure that our die face is actually, it's not going to be a number. We want it to be a different die, right? So what we can do is create a const for the die face and go to dice face. And we're just going to do a function. So we don't have to have it all in this roll dice function. We can create a different function. And I'm going to call it dice, get dice face, roll. Yep, there we go. Just automatically filled it for me. And we haven't made it yet, but let's just pretend it's made and go ahead and update in the console log as well. And then what we want to do is make sure that this dice element is that we created, or this dice element, we want to update it so it has the new dice face. So, we're going to use the inner.html value and create set that equal to dice face. So now this will have our, update the dice face with the corresponding face. So that'll be perfect. But now we actually have to make that get dice face function. function, method, same thing. So let's just instantiate that here. And so what I'm going to do here is a switch statement, which is very similar to an if-else statement. It's very similar in concept and execution to a NFL statement. It's just like a shorthand, I would say, and it's used in more unique cases. It's not as versatile as an if-else statement. We're going to roll through each numbers that roll result. Of course, roll result is equal to 1 through 6. So when it's 1, here's the Unicode for a die face with a singular number, and then so on. So 1 through 6 are the cases, and we're just going to do default, which will never be. It's always going to be a random number 1 through 6, but we're just going to tap that on just to be sure. It's just going to return nothing. So now we have our get dice face function working. And we should be, let's see where we're at so far. We don't have any of the animation yet. Okay, yeah. So now it works with, we can just change the dice, which is good enough. Like this is almost as far as we need with this die face. We can go back in with the animation that I have on this one, if you guys would like. But if you guys wanted to just know the basics, that would be enough. But let's dive into the animation. To do the animation, remember we decided how long it's going to last in the keyframes in the .css file. We're going to go back to, we're going to go over to a, what's it called? There it is, button.event listener. So here we have our button clicked, we rolled our dice, and what we're going to do actually now is we're going to so what right now is the click is the trigger, but in addition to that, we want to add this different rolling class that we had over here to trigger the animation, So dice element, which about that earlier, dot class, and we named it, what did we name it? Yes, we can name it. I'm going to do animation. All right. So now, since we don't want it to just roll once, we want to be able to re-roll it. We have to make sure that this animation ends. That's what the set timeout is. And we're creating we're just adding the statement remove, which is just getting rid of the animation. Self-explanatory there. And make sure, I'm just going to move this dice roll in here so it only rolls after. Boop, boop. Let's see where we are at so far. Okay, not too much. Oh, we called it roll animation here. That's the tricky thing. Yeah, always make sure you're using the right attributes. There you go. So now we gotta make sure should be able to access that now. Yeah, there you go. So now we have a little spinning thing. We can use inspect, and we can also see our little console log. Yep, we got our Unicode, we got our number, as well as button click, which we've been doing, which we don't really necessarily need anymore, but we can keep that in. So for the actual dice roll part, that's all we need. But we also have our history here, which updates every time we roll. So if we want to implement that, we need to start talking about the list. So what we're going to do is create a little array that holds all of the past rolls. So an array is just it's a container that holds values. Yeah. So I'm just going to add that up here. I'm going to call it let history list, and I'm just going to set it to an empty one. we have our event listener, we have this. I'm going to move our const up here so everything's more organized like that. Boom, boom. We have our roll dice function, we have our get face. Okay, so this all has dealt with the actual rolling. So for our history, we can create a new function called function update history, and we're going to put it in with roll result because of course that's what we're entering in. Boom. Okay, so we want to get the history element just like how we got the dice element earlier. So we'll document, and ours is called roll history. Remember we made that prior. Here we go. See, our ID is roll history, so we're just accessing that. Very simple. And now we're just going to go through that loop using our list using a for loop. So for, I'm going to let I equal 0, lesson length I plus plus. And yep, list item equals element, we're creating a new element, li. Of course, just like here, we hard-coded in these lists, but we don't want that anymore. We want to create our own list tags. So we're just going to do that there. List item. So that's just creating more tags, just like in HTML. That's like the cool thing about DOM. You can access and change your HTML from your JavaScript, which is makes your site more interactive and dynamic. And so now that we actually have our list tags that we're creating, we want to change it. So that's going to use our inner.html or inner HTML. Yeah, whatever. We're going to use that. And I'm going to explain this here. So this is a little back quote, which is going to be on the top left of your keyboard. You're going to need that. And basically what this is saying is roll number. This is like a variable. It's going to be I plus 1 because 0, our iterator is 0, and our index is 0. We're starting at 0, and we're going to add 1 because we don't want it to be roll 0. We want it to be roll 1. So 0 plus 1. And remember how earlier we put our Unicode characters in the span? We're going to refer to those spans again, making sure that we have get die face, of course, which we have there. History list I, so we're just accessing that the list that has all of our previous dice faces, and that number or that dice face we're going to put in to that span. So that's just going to give us that Unicode character. So that looks a little complicated, but it's not. You just have to go on the innermost and work outwards. So this is our entire list tag that we kind of had before, like this one. And now we just got to do is, of course, we have our history element list. We want to make sure, there we go, history element, and we're going to add it. There you go. Pen child is just adding. So that is our update history. Okay, history function. So now we can go back to our event listener up here, or we can put it down wherever we want. The order shouldn't matter. Now we can add or call our update history function. And when we roll the dice, we want to make sure that that die face is added to our list. So we're going to go back to our roll dice function over here to move that down here. We finished all this here. And now that we rolled the dice, we want to make sure that's added to our history list. So we have history list.push roll result. So now we are collecting as we roll. And now we can just call it update history, which is going to also dynamically update the list at the bottom. So that should be good to go. We can check it over here. We can just see. Oh, there we go. And actually what we want to do, I'm noticing we have multiple roll 1s and 2. So let's go back to our history function. All right, let's update this so every time we have history. Oh, yeah, it's going to do it for me. Yep, clear previous history. Let's see where we're at now. Roll 2. Taking a minute. Okay, now it works. Looks like it's a little slower, but all right, now our function or our index file should be good. And if we refresh the page, it's going to start with the one we hard coded in, which now we can get rid of. We don't need that. Boom, save. And there you go. Now it pops up. So that's it for this demo workshop. We see the die faces are the same. This is, again, just very brief example of what you can do with all of HTML, CSS, JS. It's all front end. And yeah, you can go ahead and this is very personalized. You can customize it as you'd like. And feel free to go back to our slides and click on any of the links to get further resources and update the die simulator or whatever you'd like to do. But yeah, that's it for this, and good luck, you guys. Happy hacking, and yeah, good luck. Thanks, guys.